Nova.
On the thoughts and the overall.
Welcome back to the Youngstown Bengal Football Podcast. I am your host, Sal Guarda. With me, as always, former defensive lineman Kyle Searle and former quarterback Kurt Hess. And unfortunately, Dan Kopp will be out of our show this evening. Well, we are back on what is going to be a sad episode as your Youngstown State Penguin football season of 2023 is now over with our loss to Villanova. We will recap that game and get into the details of it. However, of course, we are on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast. We are everywhere podcasts are available, and we are live on the YouTube live chat box. Please get your questions in there as Searle is monitoring that chat as always for us. Getting into Villanova, as it was our second round of the playoffs and did not go as anticipated. Villanova struck very early with a six-play, 88-yard drive to open the game to be up 7-0 on their opening drive. The Penguins get a answer with a field goal, and then the Penguins come back with an interception, and Mitch Davidson throws a 34-yard touchdown pass where Youngstown State takes a 10-7 lead, and I believe that will be our last lead of the game and the season as Villanova answers 14-10, then 21-10 to give us a halftime score of 21-10. Third quarter, Villanova continues to put their foot on the gas. They have another drive that is a 5-yard run to make it 28-10. Penguins have a 9-yard drive, but only for 34 yards to kick a 31-yard field goal, making it 28-13. And then Villanova just comes back and kicks a field goal of their own just to cancel it out, making it 31-13 going to the fourth quarter. Beginning of the fourth quarter, 14-yard run by Villanova, making it 38-13, which really was how the game ended up, and we try to make a couple late touchdowns. We have a 14-yard pass from Mitch Davidson to Luke Hainsley, making it 21-38 as we still attempt to really try to go down fighting. But Villanova does answer quickly on a 22-yard run, and we end up going and answering that again with a 27-yard pass from Mitch Davidson as our last touchdown with a minute 30 left in the season. 45-28, unfortunately, is our score as Villanova had our number, and definitely we'll get into if we were out-coached, outplayed, or all the above. But first, my co-hosts, Kurt and Searle, did make the drive over there. So before we dive into on the field, off the field, how was Villanova? What was the atmosphere like?
So Kurt jumped up from Columbus to Akron. We took off Friday night. It was just, in terms of a football trip, just absolutely the perfect trip. Kurt and I stopped halfway in State College, met our boy Stupar out there Friday night. We drove the rest of the way in dense fog, by the way. PA in early December, kind of tough to drive through, but we got in town a couple hours before the game. Tailgated. It was fun. It was like a cozy. That's kind of like the best way to put it. It was like a cozy little tailgate environment. The lot was literally butted up against the stadium. A lot of tents set up. It was like a big, giant high school stadium. It's much smaller than Stambaugh, so it's. I'm not taking anything away from Villanova Stadium, but that's kind of like the vibe that I got, was like a really upscale high school stadium. Everyone was right on top of each other, so it was a fun environment, and it was good to see some of the guys from the 90s and beyond in there tailgating. Some guys that have history of Villanova and telling some war stories. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely great. I mean, Christian Bryan was probably, and his wife, they're expecting a baby here soon. Christian played with us a little bit, 10 years ago now, and Randy Lewis had made the trip over there. Christian's brother was there, so we had a great crew, both of a little bit younger guys, but also like Sir was saying with Matt Hogg and a couple of the guys from the '90s. Tim Johnson was there, and anytime you get a chance to see Tim, it just lights up your life, man. So it was awesome hanging out with Tim. Villanova, I think the attendance kind of took a hit because Villanova basketball and girls basketball was playing, and they were playing at the 76ers arena. So it was a pretty big opening weekend for Villanova sports. And you know that Villanova athletic program is all about their basketball. I mean, they ride or die with basketball. So I think capacity at that stadium was maybe 10 to 12,000, and their numbers were low. I don't know if it was $3,000 or $4,000. Probably would have doubled if they didn't have that basketball opener from what we were hearing from some of the Villanova people. But shout out to Searle. Searle drove the whole way, man. They were killing it this weekend. All I had to do was drive from Akron to Columbus. So, easy on the way up there. And I know a ton of Youngstown State guys can attest to this. When I see a guy like Robbie Stupar, who we haven't seen in 10, 12 years, a guy who was a fullback recruited to run Dave by Sam Eddy and Coach Haycock, who's both his brothers played in the league. So this is a guy who's born in State College, and he's born and bred to play football. We got back there, and it took not even a minute or two before it was like we were back in Leiden dorms, man, with this guy. And obviously, like seeing Randy Lewis at the game and Christian Bryan and those guys just make you feel like you're in the locker room again. So, any chance we have to get together like we did at Villanova, or, if we go to a basketball game or something, or anytime next fall, it's just – everybody who's listening, every Youngstown State football player knows the feeling of the locker room, and seeing a guy that you shared the field with just brings those memories back. So overall environment was just awesome. It was a great playoff atmosphere.
Randy Lewis. Love that y'all saw Randy Lewis. Good people. I definitely
I've seen him twice this year. At
That's
games.
crazy. Oh, that's right.
Dap
You
him
saw
up
the ice
and
castle.
hug him. And it's like you never even left.
Yeah. Well, a couple things one thing each of you said talking about the stadium, just the fast facts. It holds 12,000, and the attendance was 2,000. In all honesty, and we talked about this offline a little bit, and Dan helped explain and open our eyes to why our stadium holds 20,000. But given that, where college football is and where the city of Youngstown is, man, I think we all wish we had a 12,000 person stadium, because we bring about 10, 11,000 people to the games regularly on an average. And I think it'd be really cool to have packed in stands in a student section that's right on top of each other, and probably be really rowdy at our games. But yeah, it was 2,000, Kurt. And I'm glad you brought up the 76ers point, because that was, we didn't have a good attendance versus Duquesne, but we had 1,000 people more than Villanova did at their second round playoff. But
and you know what? Just it felt like there was more at the Villanova game, just because of the way, Villanova's stands are kind of long and go the whole length of the field and kind of wrap around, whereas ours are, kind of just straight up in one big section. So. And I think the visitor sideline is from the 20 to the 20. So, the way that they had, and it was much shorter, their stadium's much shorter, obviously. So it just felt more full.
Yeah.
And I don't know who we got to talk to, but we got to get some crab fries at the concession stands with the white melted cheddar cheese. Dude. Those crab fries at the concession stands, those are bomb.com, right?
Crab fries at the Nova game?
Dude, yes. Oh, my God.
They're crinkle cut fries, and they got some
Old Bay and Cajun, and you dip it in white American cheese. Dude, they could have charged me $30. I'd have bought it.
Well, it was the most expensive French fries I've ever eaten, but, they were awesome. So.
I don't know the tuition at Villanova.
I will say Youngstown traveled well. There was a lot of red.
I saw that.
Youngstown
there was.
Well, so
I was proud of our turnout. I really was.
Yeah,
but
it felt like we were supportive.
I don't know Villanova's tuition, but I think it's a little more than Youngstown State. So I could imagine the crab fries was not the cheapest. But let's get into the actual game. Hold on a second. Okay. Kurt, you know what? I'm going to let you go first, and then I'm going to dive in here before Searle tells us what grinds his gears on the game.
Yeah, so I mean, just generally, I hit the offense, and after a game like this, having a 6 to 8 hour trip home, you obviously have time to process a little bit because when you're on the field, you're pretty emotional. Um, First things first, like Tim Johnson is the funniest guy to watch during the games, man. Because if you gave this dude a uniform, he would 100% get right back on that field. And so, recapping right at the end of the game, Searle and I were recapping a little bit, and talking X's and O's, and of course you want to hit the X's and O's and see if you're overcoaching or undercoaching. And I really think a lot of this came down to the fact that we were injured, we were hurt, we were not fresh, and I think Villanova, they really used their bye to their advantage. They came out and they were hitting on all cylinders earlier in their run game and kind of got us away from getting into a rhythm offensively. We felt like we had to kind of stick with them. We did get that early interception that kind of put us on a plus field, so we were able to get a field goal there. But while we were standing down there with Tim towards the end of the game, we saw Tyshawn, and I don't want to throw Tyshawn under the bus, but I mean he still had a little bit of a limp from that ankle injury, and he was probably not the only guy that was feeling that pain. This has been a long season. There's no excuse because it's playoff football, but it felt like Villanova was fresher. It felt like they were making the plays that they needed to make, and we didn't make every single play. Tough to get into a rhythm when we really couldn't find one or two things that worked early on. And by then it was 28-10. So we were doing a lot of catch up and getting away from the run game. So, stats gave us some positives towards the end of the game, but Sal, kind of like you alluded to, they may have been ballooned late as we scored a couple late touchdowns. I just don't think that we played to our identity, and Villanova seemed sharper and fresher, whether that's injury bug or whether that's long season and we played last week. But Villanova seemed to use the bye to their advantage, and we felt like we were a step slow.
Yeah, you're right. A couple things, especially on our defensive side of the ball, which I'm sure we'll get into, but just on the first quarter and in the first few drives the defense had. I mean, I'm going back to the very first play of the game. If you guys remember, I mean, we looked like we're going to win the game because they couldn't move the ball past the line of scrimmage. Second play of the game, they took it down the field, and that's when I started to get worried. And then they did whatever they wanted on that drive. A little worrisome, right? Second time the defense comes out of there, Villanova tries to run a screen. We pick it off, and I remember thinking to myself, that pick was sort of a fluke. When you pick off a screen, it's mostly a mistake by the quarterback. It's not like the D-line did something crazy. So once that was done and we got up 10-7, I was still very worrisome because it was like a false sense of security that the defense really just got lucky. And let's see how we can contain them. Third time they came on the field, they showed they really couldn't contain them, couldn't get off the field. And I knew it was going to be a long day. Mitch Davidson, I don't know what happened. It was definitely not his best game. He threw some balls that we all know are not characteristic for him. So it was just, I don't know if he was beat up from the season. And like you said, Kurt, I don't want to blame anyone. I don't know their injuries or whatnots. And then what was really weird is Doug Phillips going for it and not going for it on fourth down. There were some times where I was like, dude, this guy's nuts. He's going for it. And he converted. And other times, if I remember right, he would punt the ball. And when you're in that zone where it was kind of like, well, you should probably go for it now because it's too long for a field goal, he would punt it. And what really worried me is it doesn't matter if this offense has to go 99 yards or 50 yards. I feel like they're going to score a touchdown. Therefore, we need to go for it and score touchdowns too, because we give the ball back, they're going to shove it down our throat, and that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, I don't think we're ready to play, and Villanova showed they were. They were, and I think us and the whole country kind of thought they were overrated or the CAA wasn't good. They weren't deserving. And I think they took that and put it as bulletin board material and put it to a Missouri Valley team.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll say before I send it over to Searle is I was a little envious and in awe of their defensive scheme because we talked about how they're an odd front. If you're a listener right now and you're paying attention to football, that 3-3-5 stack or that 3-4 that they run, their linebackers are the strength of what they do, and those guys do it all. I mean, if you can remember the safeties that we played against North Dakota State, those guys fly around. They can play coverage and they can support in the run game. So anytime we were in a for sure passing down, whether it was second and long, third and long, Mitch feels that there's 8 guys back there. And when you drop back to pass and you're getting a rush with 3, you feel like there's guys everywhere. And oftentimes, especially against Missouri Valley, everybody's almost a 4-down team. And if they send another one, great. You got 5 guys coming. I got 5 or 6 in protection. I got 1 to 2 progressions read. They got 8 guys dropping back. That takes you off your rhythm a little bit. And that's kind of hard to, show in practice during the week. So credit to Villanova on that schematic front. Cyril, defense?
Yeah, so congrats to Villanova. I just want to say, like, in general, this whole game felt sloppy, front to back, defense, offense, special teams. And this is, from 1,000 miles up looking down, and, we're not with the coaches on the day-to-day and the planning. Just like to point out the call that you had talking about the punt when we should have punted, or we shouldn't have punted. We should have went for it. So the play before that, Tom Zach gets hit hard, and 100% it should have been a taunting penalty and moving us to a first down. They called it targeting, and they were able to review the targeting, and it wasn't targeting, and we didn't get the first down. That's when we threw an out to Tom Zach the very next play.
I'm glad you're mentioning
it was a
this.
third down
I completely
out.
forgot about this.
Should have ran it.
And if we are in that position and we're in that no man's land, it was like 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, and you throw an out to Tom Zach, regardless of the refs missing that call. I really think that, and I'm not going to sit here and say the refs did a terrible job. I'm just saying they missed that very specific call that put us in this situation. And if you're in this position, we need to run the ball and go and try and get 4th and 1 if we know that we're going to go for it on 4th down. But anyways, like I said, the whole game felt sloppy, and I don't feel like our guys were in a position to succeed defensively. And I kind of have to put that on the coaches. Like, it just didn't look like the team that we were used to seeing defensively. Our front 7 played average, sluggish. Like, the quarterback was getting out of the pockets, had a lot of big, long runs on 3rd down. It's like we just couldn't contain him. He was eating up yards. It was the most points we gave up all season with 45, and 191 rushing yards total. Like, that's going to be up there towards our season high. 275 passing yards. We've talked about the secondary being a struggle for us this year. It just wasn't a cohesive game, and I do think that the bye week for Villanova helped them, whether it was get fresh. They also have a lot more time to watch film and, game plan for us and things like that, where we had, 3-4 days after the Duquesne game. So just very frustrating game. The one thing that grinds my gears is, and this is for all sporting events, absolutely all sporting events, is I understand that refs are not perfect and they're going to make bad calls. And when you're in the stands and you're just being belligerent and just yelling the most obnoxious things at the refs just to, bring attention to yourself or think you're funny or cute, like that is so frustrating. And I don't care if you're a Youngstown fan or a Nova fan, like it just took away from the game, and it was really obnoxious, and there's a couple people that I'm very specifically thinking of.
Were they wearing red or?
They were wearing red, and we were kind of in a part of this section where, like, we were kind of mixed. We were with Youngstown fans, we were with Nova fans, and you could see, like, whoever was sitting around them was just kind of like grow up, and it was just not tasteful. It's just like, say your piece, like argue with a bad call, say like bad call ref, and you could say it as colorful as you want, but don't just sit there and belligerently on every single play say the ref sucks because he didn't call a holding or whatever the case may be. So that's what really just grinded my gears this weekend. It was just not a fun environment to be around those couple of fans.
But let me, if you don't mind me still in your segment, I'll tell you what grinds my gears, not just about this game, but all season. And my wife's the one who actually pointed this out that really gets her angry. So if you're playing against the Texas Longhorns, you score a touchdown, you do the horns down, like that's an unsportsmanlike conduct. You can't do that. When they score or sack us and they do the paint, which I feel like every single team has done, they don't get an unsportsmanlike conduct. Like that, everyone knows, you know what I mean? And I feel like teams do it against us more than we actually do it. And I think that's unsportsmanlike in itself. But Cyril, one more thing you mentioned on our fans. I think I told you guys I was listening to another FCS podcast where they mentioned favorite fan base, least favorite fan base. And one guy specifically said Youngstown State, because when I was in Frisco, they were very hostile and rude and yada yada. So I don't know. Maybe the Penguins that travel are just very hostile fans. I don't know why, but that doesn't help. I'm sure Villanova is going to say the same now that they're probably not looking forward to those guys coming back in Labor Day next year.
Yeah. Well, on that point, Sal, if we want to bring in the tailgate light a little bit, and Villanova, like Cyril was talking, it's a little bit more like a graduated high school stadium where there's parking lots basically around the whole stadium. So everybody, it's smart, right? You park right there. Everybody's got their tents. It was probably the most suburban, sophisticated tailgate lot you've ever been to. And I felt like our Youngstown State Penguins, we fit right in. Like the general population for us who was there, everybody was, cordial and talking to each other. There was nothing hostile about our tailgate lot. And then as soon as you go in, now we're screaming at the ref, and maybe it's because we're losing by 11 or 18 points or whatever. But what happened in the tailgate lot for us Youngstown State football fans did not translate into the stadium for us. So kind of a cross of two worlds there.
Well, for better or worse, as everyone on this show knows, the Youngstown State Penguins' next football game will be at Villanova. I believe it's on a Thursday night of Labor Day weekend, 2024. So we will be seeing this team very, very soon as far as our next game is aware. But y'all ready to lock this one up?
Lock it up.
Yeah.
Moving on, Curdy, IG segment. Anything going on Instagram?
Yeah, real quick, just wanted to get some follower material for tonight. I threw up a couple of awards earlier. Kind of wanted to get some vibes from not only our followers and listeners, but potentially some players and other people who are associated with the program. So, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, special teams player of the year. And then, because I know we're transitioning into the off season here, kind of talk about the young guy of the year and who our followers and fans and potentially some players who they kind of respect and kind of want to see as next up. So offensive player of the year, most of our followers were voting for Mitch. Definitely had some people voting for Bryce Oliver, and can't leave out the offensive line and Aiden Parker. So kind of a great year for all of those guys. Defensive player of the year. This is where we kind of got some more diversity here in terms of position and just different names and different guys. So Alex Howard had a lot of votes for him. Obviously, he's been a backbone of our defense this year. Chris Fitzgerald, Greg Benton Jr., and then Troy Jockeybeck. So a lot of questions defensively throughout the year and ups and downs, but definitely going to be something we want to solidify going into next year. Special teams player of the year was almost unanimous. It was Andrew Lastovka. Just to have that steady kicker, that stable piece, that stable force where we want to go out and kick 3 points, and a guy who's been confident and seems to be loved by the entire locker room. So definitely going to be our special teams player of the year. And then young guy of the year, we had 3 names: Joey Farthing, Bo Brungard, who seems to be the heir apparent at quarterback, and then Max Tomczak. Max Tomczak seems to be a guy that all year we could count on him, whether it was second, third down, making a big play, making a big catch. He was kind of there for us all year. And then a lot of good noise from close sources to the program, excuse me, about Joey Farthing. And he might be a guy on the outside. Rumor has it he's been clocked at a 4.22 40, and some people say he was clocked faster than that, sub 4.2. So a guy who had a big touchdown catch for us early in that game on a blown coverage, but definitely a name we want to remember. And with this transfer portal stuff, all of these guys, if they're underclassmen, we have to find a way to keep them.
No doubt. Tomczak, Brungard, those guys are going to be the future of the offense. I'm really excited to see the next few years what they can do for us. But that's a hell of a list. I would have said Bryce Oliver and Woodkey for mine because, I mean, Bryce Oliver just hell of a year as just in Youngstown State history speaking.
Yeah.
But anywho, good to move on.
Yeah.
Recapping last week, that was the week of going down our points, and I think this will be our final year and our final week of doing this. So first off, just recapping last week, our Mr. Grinds Our Gears, Kyle Sherrill won last week. He was the lone wolf that stuck out and took the Yotes, South Dakota, who did win and cover, and everyone else did not take them. That was the difference that gave Sherrill a point this week. However, that now gives Kurt the ultimate crown of the year for the predictions for the season. So hats off to Curdy overall. Just getting into these games real quick. To put it nicely, all the home game seeds won except one, which was a very exciting one most of you already know about. Albany won and covered by destroying Richmond 41-13. As we know, Villanova won and covered over the Penguins 45. Furman won and covered over Chattanooga 26-7. South Dakota won and covered over Sacramento State 34-24. South Dakota State, of course, as always, rolls 41-0 over Mercer. Then the big game of the week that went to overtime is North Dakota State at Montana State. Very lively crowd, very entertaining game. Went down to a fumble that was not sure whose ball it was. Whose ball is it? It went the Bison's way. That brought the game to overtime. And the Bison ended up blocking an extra point to win in overtime 35-34. And do you guys remember what the spread was?
1.5.
-1 Bison. So that means the game is a break-even game. Delaware at Montana State. Delaware at Montana. Montana wins and covers 49-19. Another overtime game. The Salukis are at Idaho, and Idaho wins 22-17 in overtime. That was the week that was. I don't know if you guys have any comments or anything about any game that was not the Youngstown State game before we kind of put that last week behind us for good.
We just put it behind us.
Yeah.
On to Villanova.
Oh, man.
We're back on to Villanova.
Right. Nova Labor Day 24. Well, let's get into our next segment, and I'm going to pass the ball back to you, Curdy, who gave an interesting article to our text thread today concerning the transfer portal.
Yeah, I got to source a good friend of mine, Dana Balish, on this one, WFMJ. I'm just going to list. We got 9 Penguins right now as of, I guess, this morning that were in the transfer portal. For one reason or another, we're not really sure, but this is at least the latest of people who are confirmed. I'm going to read through these, give you guys the names. We all know who they are. And then I think we got some opinions, just immediate reactions coming from you guys. I think I'm heading it over to Cyril first. So Alex Howard, one of our best players, is hitting the transfer portal. DN Dylan Woodkey, a guy that I know that we've liked all year. Andres Lehrman, Jordan Trowers. Trowers was the defensive back who had that targeting call from Valpo. It was suspended for the first half of Ohio State. DeMarco Augustine, Ezekiel Blake, Jerome Treadwell, Anthony Johnson, and then Clay Medvec, a local product from Springfield. We've got 9 guys in the transfer portal right now. You know, we go back and forth in the group text for one reason or another. We're not sure why these guys are, but that's just the name of the game right now. Is we've got 9 guys in the transfer portal. What are your thoughts?
You know, my first initial thought is, this isn't college football that we knew. This isn't the environment that we played in. We were under a little bit more strict rules when it came to being played, the transfer rules. I think late in our career or early in our career, there was the transfer rule where you were allowed to transfer within the same division and not lose eligibility if you graduated. And I think the Russell Wilson sticks out in my mind. Didn't he say like, "Oh, Wisconsin has my graduate degree that I want to pursue," and so that's kind of where that took off to where, you know, we were only allowed to transfer down without losing eligibility. We couldn't transfer within FCS. We couldn't transfer up, and we also couldn't get paid. And so this.
I don't want to
Go
cut
ahead.
you off. On the Russell Wilson, he played 4 years at NC State. If you graduate, you can only do a 5th year if you graduate into grad school, which is still a portal that's valid today.
Right, but he went to Wisconsin, didn't lose eligibility because his grad school, they, you know, quote unquote, had the degree he wanted to pursue. But what I'm saying is this isn't the football that we grew up with. So I really don't know what these kids are making their decision on. I don't know what is being talked about within the stadium. I don't know if it's you know, a financial compensation package based decision. I don't know if this is a playing decision. Obviously, I don't think that these guys are all starters for us. A lot of play time, so it's not like they're unhappy and they're transferring away because they're not getting play time. It's just I kind of has a bad taste in my mouth with it, and I'm kind of torn on the decision. I really am, because I had nothing. I had no financial help in school, and I totally get if someone has a better financial package for you, I feel like you should be paid what you are worth, and I totally get that. But I also, you know, my time at YSU wasn't always easy, and I battled through some injuries. And like I said, when I went to school, I could have transferred down. I had a lot of Division II offers. I could have left, and I decided to keep sticking it out one more year with my teammates and my guys and my brothers in the locker room. And I personally, and Kurt and DJ Moss and I kind of talked about this. I personally couldn't envision myself leaving my teammates and my brothers. And is there a number that you could put on that? I'm sure there is, but like from my experience with YSU, I don't know what that is. And I don't know what I would have got in the transfer portal, and I don't know what the transfer portal even looks like. So that's kind of like my first initial thoughts. Like, I'm a little bummed out. I left Villanova. I was like, all right, cool. We got Woodkey coming back. We got a lot of guys on defense back, and that's awesome. And then all the news breaks that they're jumping in the transfer portal, and they got Michigan State offers and this and that. And it's like, would you choose Michigan State? And I'm not saying they're going to Michigan State, but like, would you choose Michigan State in the current state of their program over YSU right now? Like, just because they're Big Ten, they're a bigger school, the program is got to rebuild somewhere. And like, is your 1 year of eligibility going to get them to the Big Ten championship? I doubt it. And that's just kind of where I sit on it. Like, I see both sides of it, and I can't honestly give my an opinion that holds any weight because I didn't experience the the questions being presented to those kids and what they have to ask and answer. The circumstances to their situation.
Yeah, so you said a lot, but I mean, you covered a lot of ground on it. One thing, and I said in the thread earlier today, just from different research I've been doing on the portal at large, because at both the FCS and FBS level, it is just a zoo. It's a complete saturated market of transfers, and that's when I found out once you enter that transfer portal, Youngstown State, as an example, Ohio State, as an example, wherever you enter your transfer portal from, that school immediately could take your scholarship away. So if you enter that portal and no one offers you at where you want to go or to be at the FCS, they may just Youngstown State could just say, we don't want you back. Now, will Doug Phillips take that stance? There's some coaches that do. I'm not saying that's best. Like Cyril said, everyone's got a different reason why they entered it. And I think internally in that locker room, everyone knows why whether it's financial, they think they're too good for the program, they have different aspirations. But one thing they need to think about and consider is, we just had a running back, McLaughlin, just last year, playing for the Denver Broncos, right? So, do you think you're an NFL prospect? If so, why are you leaving? Because all you're doing is risking the real money, which is NFL money. Are you a fantastic college player and college is your height? Then I get it. You need to go somewhere, chase the NIL money, go somewhere that you can get a payday because there's no future at that NFL level. So I can understand that. Now, one thing I do respect out of Doug Phillips, as we all know, on the other end of the spectrum, like Dabo Sweeney is an anti-portal guy, right? So when guys enter the portal, DJU as an example, you can't have guys, upperclassmen, good key players hit that portal. You can't replace them with incoming freshmen, right? You have to embrace the portal. The portal giveth, the portal taketh. And I think Doug Phillips uses the portal only to the degree needed. If he loses 8 guys out of this cycle, I think he'll go in the portal and replace them with 8 guys. He's not in there picking guys and trying to create almost like a JUCO team of random free agents. He'll only get the guys I think he needs to get, which is really what we need to ask for. That's the best culture you can get. If you want to compete, you need to replace with upperclassmen when you lose the upperclassmen and don't get anything more than.
But I mean, the portal is in a sense a JUCO type of recruiting. Like, regardless if the kid came from Bowling Green or he came, and it's like it's not and we've talked about this. It's not a sustainable way to grow a program through JUCOs and through transfer portals and but here's where the problem I see with this is, are we supposed to develop young talent for them to transfer to the portal and go to the Big Ten or go to a bigger program? And there's got to be some restrictions. There absolutely has to be, because if we're going to develop a guy for 3 years, he balls out and he's like, dude, I'm hot shit, I'm going to Michigan to win a ring or whatever. Like, dude, where's the loyalty in that? And and the one thing I kept talking about is South Dakota State had 19 returning starters from that national championship team. Their stock as a portal recruit was probably at an all-time high, and they decided not to opt in to go to a bigger program. So that's kind of where I'm stuck is like, I see this being a big problem for not just Youngstown State, for a lot of schools, for a lot of schools that develop young talent and they
For
get,
all schools. Unless you're Big Ten and
yeah,
SEC, it's
exactly.
all schools.
But that's what I'm saying. Are these bigger schools, are these Big Ten schools, these SEC schools, these ACC schools, are they just going to poach? Are they not even going to invest in high school kids because they're just like, well, we're just going to our incoming class is going to be 50% transfer portals, 50% high school kids, and the mid level schools and the FCS schools are just going to be a farm system for big schools. So if that's the case, Youngstown State should be a feeder school for Ohio State. Ohio State should buy into Youngstown State's program. And why is that not far off from seeing schools picking like a farm system for them? Like, hey, you do good at Youngstown State, you could come up to Ohio State and ball out for us, or whatever the case may
Sure.
be. The NCAA has royally screwed up on so many levels.
Yes.
That we are coming to a point of it is very hard to backtrack. And I don't know, I think this article just came out today or yesterday about the NCAA forming a subdivision for schools to directly pay players through trust and through trust funds and NIL compensation. And it's like, dude, how could you have screwed something up so bad that we are? I honestly think the Big Ten, the SEC, all those Power 5 schools, they're just be like, dude, we got all the money. We're going to go do our own thing. The NCAA doesn't do shit.
You're exactly right. A couple things. If that passes, that will be the death to the group of 5. They might as well merge with the FCS. The second thing is, it's funny you mentioned that, Cyril, about the farm league, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. Listen to a podcast this morning that literally said the FCS is single A, the group of 5 is double A, the Big 12 and the ACC are triple A, and then the Big 10 and the SEC are the majors that you just you want to try to skip double A and go to triple A, then triple A to where the money is, which is these new, the big two per, with the new TV deals. But Curdy, I mean, I want your opinion because, Cyril gave his. If we had the transfer portal today, and I know we interviewed Donald Jones, and he said he would be in the portal. We've had guys say they would, and some they wouldn't. Would you be in the portal?
Yeah, it's you guys got me going all over the place, and I really haven't had an opportunity to even think about it based on all this stuff. But Alex Howard, he's got Pitt, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Kansas, Michigan State, Georgia Tech, West Virginia, and Liberty. And you're telling me my best season, and similar to Donald Jones, he wanted to get back to big time ball. My best season was my sophomore year, threw for 2,600 yards, 26 touchdowns. If you're telling me Michigan State, Pitt, Illinois, something like that came to my door and said, hey, we got $100,000 for you, and we want you to come play here with us, we got a scholarship for you, damn right I'm considering it for sure. And like you said, Cyril, it's a different time, college football. It was easy back then as a head coach to get everybody on a mission. This is your mission. This is what you're here to do. You're here for 4 or 5 years. Believe in it. And this is where I think it's terrible on coaching staffs across the country, more specifically the coaching staffs that don't have the funds to pay these guys. Now, I don't know what the offers are financially for these kids from our program, the 9 kids that are potentially leaving, going somewhere else. But it makes it really hard for them because they've got to hit that portal and be flexible. And it seems like Coach Phillips is that way because our 3 best offensive players last year, Mitch Davidson, local product, made it all the way from a walk-on. So we didn't even offer him a scholarship right away, right? We offered him a walk-on spot. Tyshawn King was our top leading rusher who transferred up to us, right, from Northern Michigan, was an All-American D2, transferred up. So we benefited from the transfer portal. I don't know what NIL deals we got from him, but thank God to Coach Phillips and Coach Troy. Like, we got this dude. And then Bryce, who went to UK and transferred down. So it's hard for me to say I can't stand this transfer portal. I can't stand the way that these guys are just giving up on their team. Every situation is different. Tyshawn King's situation was way different than Bryce's, I'm sure. Tyshawn was a can't miss D2 running back. It was all American. I'm not sure Bryce's Kentucky situation and why he fell to us, but we got them both and we needed them both this season, right? And we didn't have Tyshawn our last game because he was kind of on a bum ankle. And I mean, clearly that guy was one of the best players on our offense. Yeah, I definitely would have considered going somewhere else because I think that to a lot of these people, and luckily I had great family support and my parents that were able to help me through college, which at that time is really what you needed, right? You needed some extra funds because you were getting nothing. You were getting meals from your team. But yeah, it's tough out there, and it's hard to say because this could be life-changing money for some of these people. $100,000 to go to Illinois or Indiana. I think Indiana was somebody I was talking to today. I said, if I go to Bloomington with $100,000 and go play football, if I had a good financial person, if I had a good Nate Adams right now and telling me, buy this student property, put your name on it, put your money on it, and for the next 30, 40 years, you can rent it out to students for such and such. That $100,000 turns into what? Millions of dollars potentially. These guys have that opportunity. I don't know if they're going to be using it, but I also am torn because in my heart, as a noble college football player like we used to be, right, a moral one, you don't want the guys in the locker room who don't want to be there. So if this guy's even flirting with the transfer portal, that locker room and those guys, maybe it's a different culture now because there's so many NILs out there with people getting different financial compensation and people transferring in or out. Well, it's a wolfism, right? If you don't want to be here, get out. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that to disrespect the people who are leaving, but it's hard it puts it all on the coaches to create a community and a culture inside that locker room where everybody respects the fluidity of what's happening. So I feel big time for the coaches that this is going on, and they, I don't know. There's got to be 2 hired coaches right now who are just watching the transfer portal 24 hours and trying to get phone calls out there.
Another thing that, like, when the transfer portal initially came out, like, I was like, oh, this is actually really beneficial to players because for the longest time, like I said, there were so many restrictions on how you could transfer, where you could transfer, the penalties for such and so on. And, just for an example, right? Like, we came in for Haycock and we were his last recruiting class. We came to play for Haycock, and obviously he wasn't our coach for the next season, but we still couldn't leave the university even though the coach that we came to play for wasn't there. So the other argument is, say Haycock wins a national championship, gets hired by Ohio State. We still could not leave the university because without penalty, even though our coach that we came to play for left. So initially the transfer portal was like, hey, there's no loyalty with the coaches leaving or getting fired. So I feel like the kids should have more freedom and less penalty to go play where they feel wanted instead of a hostile takeover or a new coaching regime coming in and whatever the case may be. And I just feel like it's turned into full out 100% wild, wild west free agency. And it's not about whether you want to play for this coach or not. Now it's now it's about if I can make more money somewhere else or if I can get to a bigger program,
what's interesting
I might as well.
is the NILs. And I'm as saturated as the portal is, I'm extremely curious if the money is actually out there for everyone. I'm not just talking about our guys in the portal that just entered. Nationally, I think a lot of guys entered thinking, I'm going to get NIL deals, and they're going to find out there's nothing out there for them. They're going to want to be coming right back where they are. So, and like I said, they don't want them back. Then they're going to be like, oh, I think there's
so speaking to that point,
you don't know it.
No, speaking to that point, and I don't know if Moss can give this a little bit more insight here, but he says there's a pretty high percentage of where careers go to die in the portal, and at the end of the day, I remember when we would get a recruit from a big time school. Now, once again, the recruiting rules were different. So we got some recruits that came down from big schools to play for YSU. And I'm thinking, all right, cool. Like, we're going to be better. A majority of those times, those kids couldn't compete and they didn't want to compete. And at the end of the day, no matter where you go, you have to go compete and start for a job. And you got 1 year to do it. So, do you think that you can go beat out some Big Ten recruits at a Big Ten school?
Just for the fun of it, just to kind of put it in perspective, let's think about an FBS quarterbacks that transferred in and the school was happy to have them. Like, man, this really worked out. I'm going to put DJU at Oregon State. I mean, obviously drones at Virginia Tech. But if you think of some of these transfers, I mean, Sims at Nebraska was a bust. You know, all these, none of them worked out. I mean, they went there and it looked so like attractive. And it's like, dude, they left their former school for a reason. And it really doesn't work out. I mean, there's a ton of quarterbacks in the transfer portal at that FBS Power 5 level. Like McCord. I mean, McCord, am I saying his name right? McCord?
Yeah.
I was not impressed by him whatsoever. And we've seen that offense flourish with other guys, and he's supposed to be a 5-star recruit. Whoever he goes to is going to be thoroughly disappointed.
Well, the thing on McCord, too,
I don't think that offense wasn't – that offense isn't McCord's style. That's not the style of offense that Ohio State wants to run. I'll agree with you. I don't think he was very good it's not used to what we're seeing from an Ohio State quarterback. And I don't think he's terrible. Does McCord want to come to YSU and throw the ball? I'll take him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about McCord specifically, and this kind of can go for any transfer, is, you know, McCord is a 5-star. And so when you have an opportunity to get a 5-star transfer, how can you evenly trade 5 stars? You know, you found flaws in McCord. You found that he wasn't maybe ready when you wanted him to be ready. And talking about Ryan Day, how are you going to go out and get the Washington State quarterback right now who, again, was a 5-star, was flourishing in probably a lower level Pac-12 this year in terms of the competition that he played against. And he's going to come here and solve all the problems when a guy like Kyle McCord was on and I'm not defending McCord because I did not like him very much this year, but he did develop. Nobody liked CJ Stroud when he first started here in Columbus. CJ's first 6 to 7 games, he truly struggled and then lost to Michigan that year. It wasn't until CJ Stroud played and should have beaten Georgia last year where people were like, damn, this dude's pretty good. Or in that Utah game when Jackson Smith and Jigba had 350 yards receiving, which Utah didn't play any defense. So McCord was on a similar path to CJ Stroud in that situation. And you could see the development moving forward. If you bring in a new transfer, who's to say that development is there? You're starting from square one again, which again makes it harder on the coaching staff to be like, shit, I got to teach this guy everything again.
Let me add Sam Hartman from Wake Forest and Notre Dame to that list, by the way. I think that's a transfer quarterback. Would you say that worked out, Curdy?
Yeah, I'd say that worked out, and Bo Nix and Penix both have improved.
Well, no, just this past year, Penix and Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, they've been at their schools. I'm just talking about this past season. It seems to be digressing as far as.
Well, was this Bo Nix's first Oregon year?
No,
second.
Second, and Penix was second. Okay.
Yeah, right. Caleb Williams.
I feel like Bo Nix has been playing football for 12 years.
DJ Ugalele's first year at Oregon State, and he's out. He's back
going somewhere else.
He's back to Florida. He's going to Florida State. He's back to the ACC.
Jesus, no wonder he can go back to the lesser competition.
All right, y'all want to put the portal behind us?
Yeah, man, that's for.
I don't know, not really. I feel like I could talk about it all night, but
yeah, you're telling me. We have all offseason to talk about it because some of these guys I feel like are be coming back. We're going to be getting portal guys. we'll see where these guys end up at. So this conversation is not going anywhere. But let's move on. We are entering the off season, and definitely follow our Instagram because on our shows, we're not going to be recording every single week like we were this season. We're going to probably take a few weeks off and then be every other week. You know, when spring ball comes up or special things happen, we'll have an emergency recording. When things like DJU decides to transfer to Youngstown State, we'll kind of have that call if we like it or hate it. Different things like that. But before we the off season officially starts for us this week. Before we get into fall camp, I just kind of want to go around the room on what everyone thinks we need to improve on in the off season, besides the obvious, like replace the transfer portals who left. I'm going to just kind of say a elephant in the room, and I could be wrong. It could be just me. Well, one, I just definitely want to congratulate Doug Phillips and the Penguins on a good season. They took a step forward. They made the playoffs. It's not like this season was for nothing. And Doug Phillips is someone we're extremely lucky to have, and I hope he's someone that stays with us in the coaching carousel. You never know what happens. Between him and Coach Troy on the offense, love them. They do a great job. The defensive side, and I don't want to call anyone's names, I am very curious to see if Doug Phillips does any changes on the coaching staff in general. But the defense, we had a lot of talent on that defense to have what was done to us. I think the defense as a group needs to get better. That's my 2 cents on whether it's coaches, players, overall the game plan. We got to do something different. That's my 2 cents before we get to fall camp.
Yeah, I think like kind of what you said, you know, Coach Phillips has done such a great job. And for us, it's just replacing our core. We've had a core group of guys that have developed and been steady forces for us, whether that's offensive or defensive line. You know, secondary, we had a little bit more guys that were interchangeable this year, but our quarterback has been pretty steady for a year and a half ever since he beat out Crenshaw last year. Our running game has been there. Dre's, I think, gone. You know, Tyshawn's gone, so replacing that core is going to be important for us. And straight up, got to see what Bo Brungard can do in the pass game, because he's going to be able to pass, or he's going to have to pass next year. You know, if he's the guy moving forward, and I assume he will be in spring camp. We know he's a great athlete. We know he's a leader and a locker room guy that everybody loves. Great runner, but you know, you got to be able to sit in the pocket and make some throws. So whether he can do that now, we weren't able to see it because that was kind of Mitch's game. But if he is not able to do that right now, that's something that he's going to develop in the offseason and spring ball, and make sure that he's taking coaching from Coach Troy, because Coach Troy can develop quarterbacks. I saw it when I worked with him at Findlay. The year or two later, they got a Western Illinois transfer. His name's Reese Gervais, I think. And, I mean, Reese Gervais, I know him because he played with my cousin's husband, great Division II receiver. He was throwing for 400 yards a game. And, I mean, that's the ability. When you have the ability like Bo Brungard can, if you can throw in the pass game, do a little bit of everything, the offense can continue to be the strength of this team. So, you know, off-season passing game development from the quarterback and keeping the core intact is our off-season moves.
I'm going to say, you know, and I'm not going to specifically call out, it's not everyone, but I think there needs to be some serious reality checks this offseason. I'm just being straight up honest. I think that a lot of these guys feel entitled. It's like I said, it's a different college football than when Kurt and I played. I think we need to get tough. I mean, there's a couple games where we just get punched in the mouth early, and some games we fight back. Some games we just quit. I mean, and we get pushed all over the field. That's not Youngstown football. And I'm just being honest. Like, I'll be the dick of the show, and
He's a legend.
I just I'm going to say that the 2013 Penguins would have wiped the floor with this team. I'm going to say it. And I believe it, and I'm going to stand by it. And there's not anything anyone can change my mind with. But so I think that we need to rebuild the core. We need to rebuild a tough core. And I don't know, man. This transfer portal's got me tripping tonight. And ask me the question before we go into camp, because I don't really have anything to say to you guys about it.
No, I mean, in a normal year, you lose your seniors, but now you're losing seniors and some potentially
You're losing juniors. You're losing the guys that you develop.
Yeah.
It's a hard-ass job right now to go out and recruit.
Your best players. Yeah, just to share with everybody, Cheryl was already pretty ticked off on the Nova game. And then on top of this, Kurt threw this news on us about the portal that just ticked Dick Searle off even more. So he's actually held back a lot on the show while we're recording. Searle, we appreciate it as we try to keep this a family.
Thanks for being so kind.
So if you want
one day we can tell him,
just ask him directly or give him a call, and he'll give
y'all can text me. I'm not that hard to find. I'll let you know what I have to say, and but one day we can tell the Dick Searle story and where that originated from.
That's right. That'll be a good off-season story. All right. But anyway, let's flip through this real quick. This will be our last week predicting. And as I kind of go down these games and to say who you think's going to win and cover in our traditional order, it'll be me, Kurt, and Searle. What's a shame is of the 4 FCS playoff games being played this weekend, 3 are national televised on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. It looks like we would have been the ESPN noon slot on Saturday if we would have won that game. It is what it appears. I'm just thinking, man, if we would have showed up against Villanova, would have been on national TV. It would have just been great brand recognition overall for Youngstown State, and we were just one game short of it. But anyway, Friday night, Furman is at Montana Grizz at 9 p.m. That is an ESPN2 game. Montana half favorite. I'm going with the Grizz to win and cover. I think they're going to win big, actually.
Give me the Paladins to shock the world money line, baby. I already won this year, so take that.
Yeah. No. Give me the future national champion Grizzlies to cover the Paladins.
On a Saturday, Villanova, who knocked us out, is at the number 1 national defending champ, Missouri Conference champs, South Dakota State. At noon, ESPN, the South Dakota State Jackrabbits are a -13.5 favorite. Nova looked really good against us, and we didn't really show up, but I not look that good against South Dakota State. They will, of course, win and cover.
South Dakota State to win and cover. They will have to get out of their defensive scheme very quickly. Villanova will, so they will be playing out of position. South Dakota State win and cover.
South Dakota State is going to beat the brakes off of Villanova so bad they're going to have 15 guys in the transfer portal.
You know that smirk Villanova's quarterback kept having against – well, you didn't watch on TV.
We couldn't
He
tell.
kept having this damn smirk. The Jackrabbits, he's not going to be smirking on Saturday. I promise you that.
Dude, I hope the Jackrabbits just absolutely just dismantle Nova. Fun fact about Nova is the DC kind of semi-recruited me out of high school. But I couldn't get into Cornell, so I wasn't really.
You could have transferred there.
I couldn't have, because it was within the FCS. We talked about this. I would have lost eligibility. And they don't redshirt in the Ivy League. You play 4 years and you're done.
Well, North Dakota State, as the only unseeded team, is the only one that is left as a non-seeded team. They are at South Dakota, which is a game that was played already, at 2:30 national TV on ABC, which is really cool. But North Dakota State is the favorite, even though they've lost this game before. They are a -1.5 point favorite. I feel like I've been dogging both these teams all year. South Dakota showed they could beat the Bison at their place before. I don't see why they can't do it again. And at 1.5 points, I think they're going to win and cover South Dakota.
Are you ready to admit that the Bison dynasty is not over, or where are you?
They're not winning. They're not going to Frisco this year, Kurt. That's
how
for sure.
deep do they have to go for their dynasty to continue? They have to win it all.
Frisco. No, they just go to Frisco. Yeah.
Okay. You give me the Bison.
Yeah, I mean, the Bison are going to it's a revenge game for them, and they get it in the playoffs. So just give me the Bison to money line or to cover. They're favored, so give me them to cover.
Albany.
Hey, as long as I threw a 99-yard pick six against North Dakota State, I think I'm always going to pick them.
Albany is at Idaho, 10 p.m., and that is an ESPN Plus game. That would be the only game not nationally televised on a major network. Albany, the road team, is the favorite at -6. I know Cyril was definitely impressed by him, and so was I. I think Albany is shockingly a better team than I gave him credit for. Idaho's a long way to travel, but I'm going to take Albany. I think they're going to win by a touchdown. They're going to win and cover.
Give me Idaho. Win and cover.
Dude, I love this. I love this Albany team this year. I mean, it wasn't – I mean, God, man, I'm dating myself. It was 10 years ago they came to Youngstown, and they were a few years out of NAIA, but they gave us a tough game. That game, I think that was my first start outside of Valpo. But regardless, this team is nasty, and
Albany?
I think they got some.
We played Albany.
Yeah, you were in Australia, upside down on the other side of the world. Don't we have a YSU alum is coaching the Albany defense, I think. And Moss hit me with it in the chat box. But, yeah, I mean, I love this Albany team. I think that, like, they're blowing teams out, and they definitely handled their business last week. So give me Albany to cover.
Yeah,
I hope they make it to the finals. I really want to see them in the finals.
That means they would have.
It's a tough road. They got a tough road.
Dakota State.
I want to. They got to get by South Dakota State. Oh, they do. Yeah, that's gonna be tough. But still, I want to see them in the finals. I don't care about the.
Well, to your point, Cyril, if you look at my last page of my notes, I have the bracket for us. All bets off. Forget what you put in the bracket challenge. Forget what you may have bet on your money. Knowing what we know now that we're a couple rounds into this thing, who do you see in Frisco? Knowing what we know now, and what we know now, I'm until Montana shows me otherwise, I still have Montana beating South Dakota State in Frisco. You guys change your mind? You got the same?
No, I got Montana and South Dakota State too.
Gertie?
Man, I don't know. South Dakota
You know what?
State.
Give me.
I don't know. Idaho, man.
Give you Albany? I know you're
Give me Albany and the Bison.
Probably and the Rabbits.
Really, I mean, I hate to say this. Outside of Idaho, Furman, and Villanova, I think all those teams are realistic to win it all. South Dakota State, Albany, South Dakota, North Dakota State, Montana. Pete
Davila, I hope I said that right, is the safeties coach for Albany, YSU football alum.
Interesting.
What up, Pete?
So, Moss, hit me with the year. I think he was early 90s.
Will somebody just give Moss the link to this?
Moss, come on, give me the year. Anyways, we still got some Youngstown blood in the bracket. Give me those Great Danes, baby.
Well, while Moss is hitting that, actually, Cheryl, we're going to try to lock it up. YouTube Live started slow today, but it picked up massively, and it is definitely popping, especially during that transfer portal segment. Any shout outs, comments, questions, things to note from that that thread?
No, I mean, just a lot of good back and forth through the portal talk. Richard Wolf had a good one here. I can't find it though, but
What up, Rich?
It's Richard Wolf. The transfer portal stuff grinds his gears. So Richard Wolf can have a
Segment.
He can have his own segment.
a grind my gears section, and Pete is a graduate of YSU in '98, so he had to have been a part of that '97 national championship team. We need to get Hog on the show at some point.
Big time.
He can, he is so in touch with where guys are at in the country and what they're doing. Fantastic job by by Hog, not Pete Hog, but Hog. Matt, I know. I was just Pete DeVilla was on my mind, so just want us to thank Hog for all he did throughout the season. All you guys in the chat, we'll do some off-season shows here. Kurt will give some reminders and let us know when we're going live, so you guys can get ready for that. We won't drop it on you 10 minutes before the show, like some of us have done in the past, like our fearless leader Sal. But so that's all I gotta say. I mean, it was a fun season. It was an exhausting season.
Yes,
and at times frustrating, but overall it was fun.
It was a fun first season. Curdy, any last words?
Yeah, man, just got to give a shout out to the QB, man. QB1. It's tough to do what you did, Mitch, and I don't know if you'll ever listen to this part, but we're proud of you, man. And we saw something this weekend that I think that kind of was a microcosm of your career and the year that you had, and being the first quarterback to ever throw over 3,000 yards in a season. But we felt like Kyle and I felt like the team was flat at a certain time. And I don't know if you missed a throw, threw a pick or something, but you came onto the sideline and you showed emotion, and you were really upset, and you provided the team with what they always needed. And at that time, the team needed emotion, and you guys didn't quit the whole time. So we got really far down in that game, and we just is exactly how your career went, man. And we're so proud of you here on the show, and I'm sure all the YSU alumni are proud of you too. Just kind of always provided, a local kid provided what the team needed. And that's exactly what you should be doing as a quarterback. So, I hope you go into the off season and do your pro day and get an opportunity to go play at the next level if that's what you want to do. But it's not easy to do what you did, and leading the team and being there and working your way up, something that transfer portal guys can't really do, right? Come in as a roster spot and earn a scholarship, and all of a sudden you're 2-year starter and breaking records. So Mitch, just giving you a huge shout out, man. Thanks for being yourself, and something that we're truly going to miss here at the athletic program. And, whoever's behind you, you got big shoes to fill, because Mitch was first class for sure.
Yeah. Potential future Hall of Famer too.
No doubt.
We'll have to wait
No
and
doubt.
see.
Mm-hmm.
And really what Kurt said, I echo it. And that really for all the seniors and the whole team in general, you took a big step. After 2016, we reached that Frisco, and then we really went downhill. Doug Phillips took over really what I have to say is a broken program at the time he took it, and really rebuilt this thing back up to get us to the playoffs. So in general, thank you to everyone on the team to help elevate our program to that next level. And let's build off that, and let's get by the second round. The playoff needs to be where the bar is now for next year. And we'll have all off season to talk about next year and really break down how the year went in detail, and get ready. As Joe mentioned, we are definitely looking for different alumni to come on the show, just like we did last off season. We want to do it this off season. Therefore, reach out to Kurt on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast. Or reach out to Dan Kopp if you guys have. I know a lot of you guys from the 90s have Kopp's number. We'd love to have every era, every person. If you and a couple of your teammates from whatever year want to all come on and do a show together, we would definitely love to do an off-season segment with you. But we need you to reach out to us. But again, it was one heck of a season, a lot of fun. This was a very successful season, as we had a lot of listeners, a lot of good interaction with the alumni, fans, and whatnot. It was very good. And to my co-host, thank you. It was a lot of fun as well. But that's going to be a wrap for this show. Again, we are on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast. Please follow it, as we are going to be very spotty this offseason when we record. Kurt will keep you on the date when we go live. We will be streaming on YouTube Live all offseason too, so you can get your interview questions in with our special guest as well. But once again, this is the Youngstown State Football Penguin Podcast. That's Kyle Searle. That's Kurt Hess. I'm Sal Guardo. Thank you for tuning in all season long. And, of course, go Penguins.
Go Penguins.